Bradley.
And I'm Brendan.
And on today's episode of Story Proof, we are talking about Men of Honor from 2000.
The 2000.
Yeah, I was going to say the year, and then I didn't. I was like, nope, don't say year, but I already got the out. And I was like, 2000.
Yep, the first movie that we're covering that made either of our top 10 lists.
Well, did I not have a Godzilla movie on my top 10?
No.
We have to redo the top 10.
No, that's not true. I think you did have.
I really thought I'd have Final Wars on there.
I think you had Final Wars on there.
I was like, I am shocked
So
I didn't.
The first solo
that's
movie
fair.
that we've covered.
Yep, we're talking about Solo, a Star Wars story.
All right.
Yeah, but I talked about a lot of Godzilla.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of Godzilla.
So this movie was on my top 10 list. I will say that in rewatching it for this podcast, I maintain that this is still on my top 10 list. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I usually not a big fan of movies, quote unquote, based on a true story, because I'm always that person, even just right there when I said, like, quote unquote, I'm always that person that's like, I don't know how much of this is real.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always curious about what liberties are taken, what stuff did actually happen or didn't happen. But this one, Robert De Niro, honestly, one of my favorite actors. I just always enjoy him. Cuba Gooding Jr. is a little hit and miss for me, but I will say when he hits, I thoroughly enjoy him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really like this movie.
Yeah, definitely whenever you see based on a true story, it always kind of becomes, like, dicey.
Yeah.
Like, there's always some grain of truth in there, but a lot of it is obviously going to be heavily fictionalized.
Yeah.
Because you need to either combine and condense characters from the real story, or you need to take some of the stuff that's less exciting about everything that happened and make it more exciting.
Yeah.
For instance, Robert De Niro's character is not actually, like, real. He's just kind of a amalgamation of, like, one or two different people that were a part of Carl Brashear's story.
Huh. I wish I didn't know that. It makes me like this movie significantly less.
There was no actual sailor named Billy Sunday.
There was no Master Chief? That's fine. I will say that the first time I saw this movie, way back when, I was very confused about the Master Chief thing, because I grew up playing Halo, and your character goes by the name of Master Chief. So in this, they're like, Master Chief. I was like, oh, okay, hold up. I have questions.
It's just a naval rank.
Well, I know that now. I didn't when I was like 7.
Yeah, you don't really get, like, a lot of hint in Halo from my recollection of it being an actual, like, naval force. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, the UNSC
Yeah.
is the name you get, and they're just like, yeah, go aliens, go kill aliens. And you're like, yes, sir, got it.
But yeah, I can definitely see where 7-year-old Bradley would come to hear Master Chief and say, oh, okay, so when's the aliens coming?
Yep. But yeah, this movie, it's got a number of characters that some honestly show up, they do their thing, they leave, cool. We do have a few characters that stick around pretty much from beginning to end, but it is, like, the majority of this movie is focused on these two characters.
Yeah, the entire story is basically just Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro. And, that works.
Yeah.
You got two good actors just, telling this story.
Yep. Just chopping it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie, it is, again, based on true events. Not quite sure how loosely. But you do kind of get, I would say, maybe 2 to 3, like, sort of chunks of the movie. So we do get the beginning of Carl's story, and then getting into the diving school. Then you have the actual diving school itself. And then you kind of have post-diving school. So we do get to see him from basically the start of his military career all the way up to, I mean, at the end of it, I think it even has the little thing at the end. It's like, oh, he went on to do this for like another 3 years.
Yeah.
So it really encompasses the entirety of his career.
Yeah, so this is a biopic, basically, of this guy, Carl Brashear, who was in the Navy. As you said, it covers basically the majority of his career. It jumps around several years at a time for various things. We're going to flash back to his early life to show kind of where he came from and where he's gone. And And there's some interesting sort of parallels to Robert De Niro's character in that as well. So, yeah, and it's going to be interesting talking about this one.
So yeah, before we get into the plot of the movie, there is one thing that I do feel like I need to point out because it is a little weird in the movie. You know, love is love, and everyone is, you love who you love. There is a very extreme age difference between Robert De Niro's character and his wife in this movie, played by I've heard it pronounced so many different ways. Charlize Theron, I think, is probably the most common one I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a 32-year age difference between the two of them. I will say that if you look at pictures of them now, it is very obvious. In the movie, it kind of works. It is obvious that she is younger than he is. I think she's a great actress. I'm not going to lie. I feel like she's kind of underutilized in this movie.
She is.
Also, we do have the character of Joe that is Carl's significant other in this. She's there. I don't really feel like they give her a whole lot to do. She has one moment that we're going to talk about that annoys me because I just feel like it's bad writing.
Yeah.
But, she's there. But it really is. It's the story of these two guys. I mean, this is absolutely the focus of this entire story.
Yeah.
So speaking of story, when we start the movie, we actually have a situation where we start kind of towards the end. So when we first open up on the movie, we see Billy Sunday, who is Robert De Niro's character, in pretty rough shape. He has been arrested by military police, and you can tell he got in a fight, and, he did not do well. He's got a really busted nose, I think like a black eye. He's been roughed up pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the state of the other guys was.
That is true.
So we don't know if he took a beating, but he gave the beating right back or not.
I've laughed and yelled so much now my throat's fucked up.
Either way, Billy Sunday's been arrested by the military police, as you said, because he's gone AWOL from the Navy.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not good. We know through the characterization we'll see in the movie that Billy Sunday is kind of a hothead. He doesn't take to authority well.
Dude, honestly, most of his story in this is him just getting demoted as the movie goes on.
Yes.
Yeah, so one thing I will say is about, because even like here, we're going to jump around a little bit in time, but from here, we go to the beginning of the story, and then we go in order up to this moment that we see now, which is really close to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But pretty much every time we check in with these characters, a fair chunk of time has passed, be it a few months, a couple years. So the span of this movie is pretty significant. It's a pretty long time frame.
Yeah, it's about a 20-year run. I think the opening takes place in '66, and the flashbacks that we're about to get to featuring Carl go back to 43, I think it said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's about a 20-some-odd year gap between the two.
But yeah, we do see him while he is handcuffed between these two military policemen. He's watching on the TV, and we see Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character on there. And he is on the news. They're talking about him being successful. And it is an interesting point that this is, I believe, the only time in the movie that he, being Billy Sunday, refers to Carl's character by his first name.
Yeah.
If not, it's pretty noticeable that he does it here because he never does it anywhere else.
Yeah, he has various other nicknames and references to Cuba Gooding's character throughout the movie. But even when he's, in good graces with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character here towards the latter part of the story, he still talks to him he still calls him by some of those names or by, just Brashear or something like that. So it is interesting, just kind of this moment. He beats up the two military police guys who are trying to, detain him.
Yep. One of them says, some smart alecky comment, and he puts him in, a bit of an armbar.
And it's just...
It tells you just about everything you need to know about this character immediately.
Yeah, everything you need to know.
Yeah. Also, one thing, if you caught the years that Brendan said, it is an important thing to point out that Carl is Cuba Gooding Jr. He is a black man,
Yes.
and Billy Sunday is Robert De Niro and is a white guy. That is a very important plot point for the entirety of this movie.
Yeah, this story is entirely about Carl Brashear, who is the first African American diver in naval history.
Mm-hmm.
So it tells his story of trying to get into the Navy, make his way up through the Navy, become a diver, all throughout the harshly segregated time period that he lives in.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that introduction to Billy Sunday, we jump back in time to the beginning of Carl's story, and we start in 1943, where I'd say he's probably like 8 to 10 years old, somewhere in that range.
He's a kid.
Yeah, he's a kid, and we see him just running out of school as quick as he can, and he runs through this forest and just dives straight into
Dude, this kid, it is such a good shot. He does not hesitate for a moment.
No, he just jumps off a little like man-made dock, like a little floating dock, into this pond that's nearby, and he swims down into where this car is just sitting rusted and sunk at the bottom of the pond bed. So he swims in and out of the vehicle a couple times, and then he starts swimming to the surface, and then we get another quick cut into his childhood home.
It is not great.
No, his father is a sharecropper in Kentucky, and this is just a little, like, I don't think it's even a one-bedroom situation. It's just a little log cabin type house.
Did they ever show the inside of the house?
Just whatever he's in the bed. He wakes up, and then he goes to the window and sees his dad out there sharecropping. His dad, played by Carl Lumley, in the movie for about 2 minutes of screen time.
He's not in it very long.
But he's the first of our West Wing connections in this.
First of three.
First of three. We're about to get another one very soon for the next 5 seconds.
Yep. Who has got the shortest one of them all by a landslide.
I don't know if we've mentioned it before. Bradley and I both love the West Wing, so we are going to reference it whenever we can, whenever there are actors who are on the West Wing.
Yep, and this one does have a few of them. Yeah, one of them is so fast here in just a second. But yeah, I mean, one thing that's very clear early on is this family is a very low-income family.
Yeah. So the way sharecropping works is that one person owns the land. They hire a family to live on the land and work it and farm and whatnot for them in exchange for
a bit of money,
getting to live, and they get to keep a little bit of the crop and stuff like that, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but the majority of the benefit still goes to the person who primarily owns the land. And that's important because the constant threat that his father is living under is, if I don't get this field tilled by Friday, and if I don't get this wheat planted by Friday, they could find another family to come in, and then we don't have a home anymore. And Carl is like, I'm not going to school today because I need to help you till this land because today is Friday, Dad.
Yeah, there is a moment where the dad... It's a kind of nice moment where the dad is like, no, you have to go to school. You have to make more for yourself. I'll get it done by Friday. And then Carl is like, it is Friday. And the dad's face is just like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And so Carl skips school that day. This is where we get our second...
Dule Hill is summoned out of the void. It's just like, no one mentions him. Carl doesn't say, I brought a friend. His dad doesn't say, I hired someone to help. The boy is just like, I'm gonna help. The dad's like, okay, and then it's just like, bam, Dule Hill is there.
Yeah, I don't know what Dule Hill's character is. Is he supposed to be like an older brother? Is he just another person who, like you said, he hired? It's not really made clear. He's just there with a couple of the horses, and then you get the scene of him, Carl Lumley, and young Carl Brashear.
Yeah, they're all
working and tilling the land to try to get it done. And then that's it.
Yeah, it does one of these transitions where you see a younger character doing something, and then it immediately transitions into the older version of the character doing the same thing.
Yeah, so about probably 8 to 10 years have passed. Cuba Gooding Jr. is now playing Carl, and he's tilling the same land. So obviously they got everything done and everything.
Also, Cuba Gooding Jr. in fantastic shape in this movie. That first scene that you see of him, like, he's pretty ripped in this.
Yeah.
Also, an important thing to point out for him, because it is a bit of a plot point later on, is the way in which they work this field. Is they have the horse pulling the large plow in front of them, and he's holding the reins of the horse in kind of like the palm, the almost fatty part of your palm.
Yeah.
And because he's been doing that for so long, he has these almost like scars built up on that part of his hand.
Yeah.
It is when you see it in the movie, it is a very particular look of the scar on his hand.
Yeah.
It's almost like some people, like professional guitar players, some of them can like look at the fingertips of another guitar player and be like, I can tell that you're a guitar player.
Yeah.
So it is just a little bit of a kind of eyesight thing.
Yeah, you particularly see it during the scene with young Carl and his father talking. You see
his hands are just bleeding.
The bleeding and the scabs on his hands. And so at this point now, when we've jumped forward and we have Cuba Gooding Jr., it's the day he's about to ship out to go to the Navy.
Yep.
And so his mom comes out and is like, "Hey, we gotta get going. Your father's already down the way waiting on us."
Yep.
So we gotta go. And then they go to the recruiting area, and like Cuba's saying goodbye to his father and mother. And
yeah, there is something funny here where this is them basically going off to. They're already in the. They've already been accepted. This is them leaving. The like military recruiter is still there spewing all of the recruitment lines, and I was like, it's kind of funny, but in a bit of a dark way.
Well, it's especially because you can see that he's like having to chew through it. Like he's spewing it, but he doesn't believe or like mean any of it. It's just the propaganda. It's just the spiel that he's been told to say over and over on each of these little stops to get all of these people to go through. And he's promising like you're gonna start a new life and you'll have all of these benefits and stuff.
Pay to send home is a pretty important one.
Yeah, and when you hit the U.S. Navy, and
and then before he leaves, his dad, who's very stone faced in this scene, like I gotta give it to him, man. He gets the mad look on his face so well.
Yeah, but you can see him like fighting the emotions behind it, which is really impressive acting from Carl Lumley. Like he's trying to be steely about it, but you can see the underlying emotion there.
Yep. I'm glad you enjoyed it because this is the last time we ever see him in this movie. But he does give his son a radio.
Yeah.
This radio kills me. It is the jankiest looking, which fair, but I believe his dad built the radio himself.
I was going to say it's because it's just made by hand by his father. And it's just built out of little bits of wood and wire and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then there is something carved in it that when we first see it, it's just a few letters.
Yeah.
And it is ASNF.
Yeah.
And at this point, we see that. He sees it, and it is very clear that he knows what it means.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a moment over it. And this is one of those moments where this is good writing because that pays off really well later.
Yeah.
He says goodbye to his parents. This is the last time we ever see his dad. And he gets on the bus, and he's going to go and make his new life, and everything's going to be great.
Smash cut to the ship, and he and a lot of other people are in the kitchens cooking.
Yeah, I think it's like 6 months later.
Yeah, 6 months later. They're in the South Pacific, and
I will say, when Brendan said a lot of people, all of the cooks on this ship, which is what he is at this point, all black.
Yeah, they're all black.
It is very clear the segregation is alive and well.
Yeah, Carl and a couple of his friends from the kitchens come out onto the deck, and they see a bunch of the white sailors swimming. Yeah, because it's their swim day.
I will say, Cuba Gooding Jr. gets one of my favorite line deliveries in this movie, is where he just walks outside and he's just like, hot. Yeah, it's hot. That's so relatable.
Yeah,
it's just so funny.
And the line that follows that
is also really good.
Is also really good. Hell has no has nothing on the South Pacific or something like that. I think about that constantly every summer.
Dude.
Like, that is, like...
It's so good. There is another really good line delivery coming up as well. When, they look out and they see all the white people in the water swimming. Yeah. And Carl just straight up starts kind of, I say taking his clothes off, not in a strange way, but in a very, it's clear that he is going to go swimming. And someone's like, Carl, what are you doing? It's like, I don't remember what they call it, but like colored swim day is like Friday. And he's like, well, I'm hot on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Another character that kind of runs through the story, Hanks. He's sort of a antagonist.
Yeah, he sucks.
So he actually tells one of the other swimmers to go retrieve Carl and make him get back on deck because he's breaking rules. So
this dude, I will say, this dude has I guess the physique I would not expect for like a Navy swimmer.
Yeah.
This dude looks like a freaking football linebacker.
Yeah.
This dude is huge and he's very muscular and broad. But yeah, he jumps in and he swims up to Carl and tells him to come in. Carl's like, nope.
And then Carl swims out to a buoy that's out in the distance, and he just leaves this guy in the
this
dust.
guy goes after him, and this is another moment where I'm like, this dude I don't know if this guy was a swimmer or if Hanks just looked at some random dude and was like, hey, get him. Because this dude swims for like 10 seconds and is out of breath.
You see, I think we're supposed to assume that this is supposed to be like
some long distance thing.
Or like he's a really good swimmer, but Carl's better or something.
That is what you're supposed to think, but the editing maybe, it's so fast.
But anyway, the point of the scene is Carl's a strong and fast swimmer, and he makes it out to this buoy. Immediately gets thrown in the brig for disobeying orders.
It is a funny moment again where like he's really happy and like some of his friends on the deck are cheering. You're like, ooh, and then it's just him immediately in the brig.
You get a shot of Billy Sunday in this sequence too. As soon as like Carl jumps into the sea, because Billy Sunday's on this ship too. Mm-hmm. He's smoking his trademark pipe, and he just kind of quickly glances over his shoulder at like, what's this hullabaloo going on? But anyway, Carl ends up in the brig. The captain, played by Powers Booth, comes in and is giving him the standard sort of military dressing down of, oh, you did the wrong thing, you disobeyed orders, and then but man, you're a good swimmer, I'm going to reassign you to the rescue swimmer squad.
Yep.
You see this a lot in every military movie where the hero does something bad, but it's really a good thing. Then Carl gets transferred to the rescue swimmers, but he can't go live with the rest of the rescue swimmers.
So him getting transferred to the rescue swimmers, he is not himself a rescue swimmer. He's more like the support staff type. Yeah. So these swimmers, when they go down in the water, they are wearing... It is literally what you think of when you think of the old diving suits. I always think of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Where they're wearing the very thick suit with like the big gloves and particularly the very big helmet with like the circular cutout in the front. Yeah. It's got the little thing where it like swings open. I mean, if you think of diving suit, like old-timey, it is exactly what you think it is. And these things are huge. So when they're coming in and out of the water, they've got a pretty good number of people on them. Working winches and things to get them up, get them pulled over, people working the airline. It is a group of people. So he is assigned to that group, basically.
Yeah. So we see Carl writing a letter back home to his mother and father the next day. He stuffs some money in an envelope to send back home, and he hears the rest of the mail chopper coming up.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the ship gets rocked. Like there's an explosion, and you don't know what's going on. Turns out the mail helicopter hit a pole
I think it said like he
on
clipped
the ship.
one of the lines up top.
Yeah,
and the chopper just goes down.
The chopper went down in the water, and so when Carl gets onto the deck, he joins in on heaving the line for what turns out to be Billy Sunday, who's gone down in his diving gear to try to get one of the pilots because there's two people on the helicopter. So he grabs one of the pilots, brings him back up. You get a sort of like moment where Carl sees Billy Sunday coming up out of the water.
It's a cool shot.
It's a cool shot, and it's sort of reverential, like, oh my God, this is a heroic moment sort of thing. And you get the sense here, like, okay, Carl's kind of found what he wants to eventually do in this moment, but he doesn't quite know it yet in his mind. Anyway, Sunday comes out. They take off his helmet and stuff. They try to revive the helicopter pilot, but he's already gone.
Yeah, there is a really nice moment here as well that is one of these things where it's a nice moment here, and I don't feel like you get a lot of moments with it where when he finds out that the pilot is dead, he is very upset about the fact that the pilot is dead. You don't get a whole lot of like humanizing moments for him, but when you get them, they're good.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's very upset about it. One thing to point out at this point is with them doing the deep diving the way that they are, they have to deal with pressurization.
Yeah.
With their suits and with gases and whatnot. So that's one of the reasons why they wear the suits, and they have the oxygen lines that go down to them as they do their diving. So he does have his diving partner who also went into the water to try to get the second pilot. And again, they're putting them out on these like big winches, and he's on like a platform. And as it goes out, it has a malfunction and it ends up coming, basically just let loose. And he falls into the water in this very heavy suit. And when the platform and winch falls, it severs his airline.
Yeah.
So he drops in this very heavy suit. He is plummeting. So Billy Sunday says that he's going to. I like how every time we say it, it's Billy Sunday, Billy Sunday, 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 Billy Sunday. As Billy, it sounds weird to just say Billy.
Yeah.
Billy Sunday is immediately trying to jump back in, and they're telling him like, dude, you can't do that. You just came up. Your body has to adjust to this. They're gonna prep another person to go in, but obviously that person is not gonna get there in time.
Yeah.
So he has this kind of funny moment where he's like, I'm going in, and the guy's like, you can't, you're gonna die. If you do, you'll get demoted. And he's like, yes sir, salutes him, goes off the side.
This was Hanks again. Hanks was the one telling him. Sunday disobeys orders, doesn't even go in with like a suit or anything. He's just in as like sort of
like a bottom
suit.
layer
like
type.
Yeah, it's like a bodysuit almost or something like that.
Yeah.
And then so he just puts on like a mask with a snorkel, and I think it might have like an air feed to it or something like that.
It's not much.
But he jumps in to go save the second diver, and then immediately cut to hospital.
Yeah, I hate that. Like, we never did he save him?
I think he's the one who's in the shrouded, the sort of. The first bed we see has a little like tent on it or something. I think that's the secondary diver.
I feel like you're having to assume that though. Yeah, they don't say it.
They don't say it.
They
but
should
I think
say
it. But I think it's kind of implied. It looks like the same actor because you kind of get a glimpse of the second actor.
Do you?
Yeah, there's a shot of him.
I saw a generic looking dude in a suit, and I saw a generic looking dude in bed. Covered in plastic.
Okay, so he's generic looking. You can't help that.
Yeah, but they should have said it.
Anyway, you also then see Billy Sunday off in his own bed. And it turns out that has ended his diving career because he has severe scarring on both of his lungs.
Yep.
And any pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, and they tell him, like, if you dive, you're done. You're going to die. Yeah. And he handles it very well and maturely. So he throws a temper tantrum and just absolutely goes ape shit in this hospital.
Yeah.
And then we get the first of our many scenes in this movie of him being demoted.
Yeah, it's I never thought about it until just this moment, but it's kind of funny that the movie has the parallels treks of
one
Sunday,
goes up and one comes down.
Yeah, Carl's constantly moving up, and Sunday's constantly moving down.
I mentioned it earlier, dude. He starts this movie as high ranking as he ever gets.
Yeah,
he just get like almost every time frame we check in with him, he's getting demoted.
Yeah, so he starts off as a Master Chief, which is the highest level an enlisted man can get in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets knocked down a rank for disobeying orders, and
the first of many.
And so now because he can't dive anymore, he's being reassigned to go teach others how to dive.
Yeah.
He kind of accepts that at this point. You know, he has a begrudging look on his face, but I guess he
Yeah,
accepts it.
It's so weird. It's like he is so respectful and so militaristic to people that he respects.
Yeah.
Every time Hanks opens his mouth, he is like, "I hope you die. Fuck off. You are nothing to me." And you know what? Fair.
Yeah,
I get it.
I mean, part of it I think is because Billy's kind of old school Navy,
Yep.
and Hanks is very much a younger, more
Yep.
old new school Navy kind of guy. That comes to play later on in the movie too with Hanks multiple times.
We do
And
also
just-
see Billy be pretty blasé to the younger military police, despite the
Yeah.
fact that is someone you would think he would give at least a bit of respect to.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime he is in any of the hearings, or because again there's multiple, or any of the rooms where there are high ranking, he is always very respectful, and he is very on point with them. So yeah, even this, when they assign him, he accepts it, walks out. He doesn't balk at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally as he is leaving to go to diving school, Carl is in the room and is like, "Hey, diving school. That sounds like a good idea."
Yeah, he goes up to his captain who's in the hearing, and he asks the captain for a recommendation letter to go to diving school, and he's like, I just made you.
Yeah, just
I just
promoted
promoted you and gave you a new position 3 days ago. What do I owe you?
Yeah.
And Carl has a good line here. He's like, I owe you, sir.
Yeah.
I owe you for giving me the opportunity, and I need to take it. And that's enough for the captain to be like, I'll give you a recommendation letter.
Yeah, and I think he does say, like, it. That being said, though, it's probably not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And Carl's like, "That's fine."
Yeah.
And then we jump cut 2 years
Yeah.
later.
2 years later, and he's at a diving school in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Yeah. We do get it a little bit later, but I just feel like now's a good time to mention it. There is a line later about apparently during those 2 years, Carl wrote a ridiculous number of letters.
Yeah.
Like he did not just apply and get in; he had
Yeah.
to actively fight his way in.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they had mentioned at some point in time, if he did this for so long, why now? Like what did they literally just eventually get so annoyed they're like, "Oh my god, just let him in."
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is because around that same time is when President Truman officially desegregated the U.S. military in like early 1950s. So it would be around that same time. Maybe that's
Maybe.
part to do with it.
I don't know.
But
A lot
it
of the
could also
years
be
we end up
just-
inferring from this.
Yeah. It could also just be that he eventually just wore them down enough that they decided, okay, we're going to give this guy a shot.
Fair.
He arrives at the post, and the commander of the school, Mr. Pappy, gets a call and is like, "Hey, don't let him in."
Yeah, so if you've ever seen any movie ever where it's like a military base, they've got the like gated front,
Yeah.
and there is the guy in the little guard shack looking thing outside. And when Carl shows up with his paperwork, I mean, he has everything that is supposed to let him in. He's in his military uniform, and yeah, Pappy says don't let him in. So the guy, I don't think he even, if I remember correctly, he doesn't even say anything to Carl. He just like hangs up the phone and then just that's it.
Yeah.
He just kind of like doesn't acknowledge that Carl's still there.
Yeah, because then Sunday comes driving out of the base to go into town or whatever.
Yeah.
And he recognizes Carl.
Yeah.
And
this is I think the first time he calls him Cookie.
Yeah.
Because he says something about like what's on the menu tonight, Cookie.
Yeah.
Because he remembers him
as a
cook.
And he just assumes that he's going to also be a cook.
Yeah.
Here, I guess. He even makes a comment as he drives off about him, hoping he's better than the last cook.
Yeah. It is also important to point out at this point that it is very obviously daylight outside.
Yeah.
Yep. Just want to point that out before the next little part.
Happens. Because he it's like morning when he arrives, I assume, and he's basically just standing at attention outside of the base the whole day. Billy Sunday even makes a comment about how it's supposed to be a hot one today.
Yep.
And so he's just standing outside all day until about sunset, just waiting to be let in.
And you do see a lot of people coming
Yeah.
and going through the base at this point. It's pretty impressive that he's not wandering around. He's not fidgeting. I think he's pretty much at parade rest.
Yeah.
Like the whole time.
Yeah, he's just determined to stay there and not let it show that they're shaking him in any way.
Yeah.
And so now Sunday comes back.
It is very nighttime.
It's the sun's getting real low, and so they have another conversation, and this is where the palms come back into play.
Yeah. So Robert De Niro's character is driving a fairly nice looking car, and he comes up. He's got the pipe, the corncob pipe, and he's talking. They're going back and forth a little bit, and Carl makes a point to talk about being like a Navy man, and that's what he wants to be. And he talks about working mules, and as he does, he looks. It's a very pointed glance at Robert De Niro's hands, and then the camera cuts in, and he looks at his own hands, and you can see he has the same type of scars that Carl does.
That Carl and his father had.
Yeah. So
and it's one of many sort of parallels we're given towards how Sunday and Carl had very similar sort of upbringings, and it's sort of just putting them further on these two paths that are similar but also diverging from one another. And I really like Cuba Gooding Jr.'s acting in that moment where he notices, because you don't see it at first, but you kind of see his eyes just shift very quickly, like he notices it, and then he goes into that talk about how he doesn't want to go driving mules, and then just the sort of like, I know a little bit of something about what's going on with you, Sunday. Like, it's just a really nice moment of acting from Cuba Gooding Jr. there. I really liked it.
It's also one of the first moments in the movie that we get a little bit of Billy Sunday being like, you know what, fair
enough.
Like, maybe not winning him over, but it is enough. It is enough that he tells the guy to let him in.
Yeah, he like overrules General Pappy or Mr. Pappy and says, hey, let him in. And so now Carl's in diving school.
Dude, I love when he comes in and he's like looking around and everything, and there's the one guy whose punishment, he's sitting there like beating the pan with the thing, being like, I stole a pie.
Yeah, I guess he stole a pie from the mess, and he's just being made to stand out there and make himself look like a fool all day. It's a really funny moment that I always think about. Whenever, that's one of the things I think about when I think about this movie, is that moment.
It's them's the rules. You gotta have it. So he comes in, and there's some let's just say racial tension. Pretty much immediately.
Carl is the only black student in the school. At this point, so he
is not just student. He is the only black person on this base. Like, even including the cooks, the other workers. No, he is the only black person there.
And so he does meet Snowhill, who is the only one who's friendly to him. And he gets a little introduction to General Pappy, or Mr. Pappy. I keep calling General Pappy. But he talks about how Mr. Pappy was going to be admiral, but he's got too many screws loose, so they reassigned him here. Mr. Pappy is played by Hal Holbrook.
Our third and final
West Wing connection.
Good old Albie Duncan.
But Hal Holbrook has also just been in a ton of stuff. Like,
he's one of those people that you might not know him by name, but as soon as you see him, you're like, oh yeah, that guy. And he's pretty enjoyable in this. He is batshit crazy, and he plays it so well.
They even show a couple of the students at the base putting his
the dog,
his pet pug, in a bucket, raising it up, and he takes the pug out of the bucket and goes into his little quarters.
So
there at the top of his watchtower.
We get a bit more into that a little bit later, but Mr. Pappy has got a real thing about like germs and dust, and which I don't know, how did he make it this far? And he's really
Yeah.
obsessive about it. I mean, he's cleaning his medals like crazy.
Yeah.
He's given speeches about dust being made up of human skin. It's gross. The pug. God, I forgot about the pug. It's very funny.
It's a very funny image just seeing this pug get hoisted up in this bucket. But anyway, Snow Hill, then he and Snow Hill go into the barracks, and you get the scene where basically everybody's like, I don't want to bunk with Carl, so we're gonna
Yeah, so
leave.
I think it is an important thing to point out that Billy Sunday comes in and they're all at attention, and he basically says something along the lines of, "Are you all okay with this?" And one person steps out and says no, and he grabs his stuff and leaves.
Yeah.
Billy Sunday does not say you guys can leave if you want. He asks the kind of opening question, and then everyone just starts leaving, and Sunday does not a thing.
Yeah.
He just watches them leave. You can very clearly tell he went there to make a point, and he made it. Snow Hill is the only one that stays. So they have this entire big barracks, and there are 2 people there.
Yeah.
So yeah, after Sunday leaves is the first time, or not the first time, but we do get a really nice interaction between the 2 of them.
So Carl's like, you didn't have to stay. I would have understood if you wanted to leave too, or whatever.
Well, he doesn't quite say it that way. He gets kind of mad.
Yeah.
He gets a little bitchy, like, aren't you gonna leave too?
Yeah. And Snow Hill's like, I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I guess that's all the justification you need, I guess.
Yeah.
But
he said
like,
that, and Carl's like, okay. And I'm like,
I've never
all
been.
right.
I've never been.
I've been to Wisconsin. You know what? It's really white. A lot of white people. I don't know. Something about that line. I was like, okay, whatever.
But that's what Carl says. He's like, I've never been there. So, and then they just go on and unpack and do their thing.
Yep. And then we very officially get into the training stuff. This is one of those things where, not to get like too bogged down in like plot point by plot point, pretty much what goes on as far as his training is, for any of the physical stuff, he's very good.
Yeah, he's top in the class with all the physical stuff.
Yeah.
But
when it comes to the educational side, I mean, he dropped out of school at a very young age.
Yeah, I think he said 7th grade was the highest form of education he got. Level.
So he is going to need help with that. The other thing that happens early on is that Snow Hill does end up, I mean, just flat out getting targeted by Billy Sunday and gets kicked out.
Yeah, Sunday gives this big spiel about how only like 3 of them will actually get through the course and like be able to get into like promising careers in all of this, and then he called out Snow Hill for like,
with the freaking weight belt. Yeah, so they're standing on the edge of the water, and he calls out Snow Hill, and he takes one of the weighted belts from their diving suits, and just, I don't know if you ever had anything like thumped into you stomach wise, and it just knocks the breath out of you.
Yeah.
He absolutely nails him in the stomach with this and pushes him back into the water.
Yeah.
And Carl's like, he's gonna die down there, and Billy Sunday's like, nah, bullshit. His application says he can hold his breath for 3 minutes. It's only been like 1 minute. And you see the bubbles coming up, and Carl is, of course, very correctly saying, you're only being mean to him because he was nice to me.
Yeah.
But Snow Hill comes up out of the water prematurely, and Billy Sunday's like, get fucked, you're out.
Yeah.
So he loses his one friend very early on.
Yeah. And then it's just a lot of, again, like you said, training exercises showing that he's good at this stuff. There is the point where one of the teachers gives him a test that he failed, and he's like, you can get help outside of this camp. And so he goes out.
Which, by the way, I think is a really nice moment.
Yeah.
Because that is literally the first time that we have seen anyone at this school other than Snow Hill be any level of nice to him.
Yeah.
It would have been very easy for that line to not have existed, and Carl figured it out. But I think it is a nice moment where it's like, okay, not everyone sucks.
Yeah.
Most of them do.
Yeah.
But
so, taking that information, Carl goes out on his weekend leave and goes to a library where he meets Joe.
Well, he meets the librarian first.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, and he brings flowers.
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. And the woman says something about like, "Oh, my husband's not going to appreciate the flowers." And then yeah, Joe, I think she's just working there she's a student and she works there.
Yeah, she says well. She said that she's just completed med school and she's like studying for the final tests or whatnot to become like a practicing doctor or something like that.
Yeah.
And so she's just working in this library while she's studying and doing that, trying to get some money. And Carl goes to her and is like, "Can you help me with learning all of this stuff?"
And she's like, "Nope." And then it's just like end credits.
Nope. She's like, "No. What? How much of an education did you get?" And he's like, "7th grade."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I can't help you." She leaves him. He kind of disappears. Like he goes to hide, I guess, in the library as she's getting ready to turn around and lock up.
Which I find very strange because this is not an abnormally large library.
No. So she leaves, and the next morning she's the first one in, even before the librarian, and she finds these little flowers strewn across everywhere. And she finds him just having, I guess, been there all night studying for the various topics, and he's memorized a specific one that had come up earlier in the movie about Boyle's Law. And he recites everything, and Joe's like, "Oh, okay, I can work with you, but my time is precious."
Yeah, so she is very particular about do not waste my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like Joe very much. I think she's like as a person in the movie, I think she's a sweet person. She just doesn't really do a lot.
Yeah.
And she has one moment that I'm like, this is dumb.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the actress is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like she does enough for me to be like, yeah, I like this character. I do like when he says, "Can you help me?" She's like, "What's your highest level of education?" He tells her, and she's immediately like, "Nope." I do like that moment.
But she also has a bit of a prejudice against naval folk. Yep. Because her father was in the Navy, and her father abandoned her when she was young, her and her family.
Yeah.
So she already didn't kind of have a high note of him because he was in the Navy to begin with. So that kind of played into that hesitancy to help him too.
Yeah. And then we go back to training school, and we get a little moment where it's shown that he is doing better on tests. He's not like acing them, but he is doing considerably better.
He's doing enough to pass.
Yeah. There is one training exercise where a group of the guys are supposed to go in, like they have this large, I guess it'd probably be a lake. It feels like I used to say pond, but it's pretty big. And they've got a ship or a submarine that is sunk underwater.
Yeah.
And they keep resinking it and sending the people down there to like do some plate welding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
While Carl and his other person are in it, it shifts and it falls. And it's just a nice moment where like the guy he's with down there is panicking. He's not able to do anything he's supposed to do. He's just like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And Carl is the one who is staying cool-headed. One of the other guys down there,
Yeah, and we should mention as well that the one who just pieces out, who's like, "I'm not going to die, you guys are on your own," this is like the golden child of the class, Rourke. Carl does start to get a little more antsy down there at this point because they've already got the hose unhooked. And Sunday's like already said, like he only has 5 minutes of air once you disconnect that hose.
Yeah, and the dude in front of him is, you can tell I think the acting is a bit much.
A little bit.
Like I get panic, but
yeah,
it's a little much. But he can tell he's like starting to pass out.
Yeah,
he's losing air.
And so last minute, Carl gets the hose back on, gets the air back in, saves the day, gets him back up. But Rourke gets a medal for it.
Yep.
And you can tell like the disdain that Sunday has to have to give him the medal. You can tell Rourke has shame for receiving the medal.
Yeah.
You have Isert, who is the one that Carl saved at the bunks. He's about to leave because he doesn't have what it takes to get through with this after that moment. He doesn't want to do it anymore. But he acknowledges Carl and is like, "Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
And it's just
there is like after they dismiss everyone, everyone leaves, and then Rourke
then,
stands there.
Yeah, Rourke just stands there because he knows, and it's followed by a nice little moment here in a little bit, too, when they're in the bar. At this point now, you see Carl call back home and call his mother because the dialogue tells us that his father had, I guess, gotten sick or gotten hurt or something like that. I think it was gotten sick. And this is where we find out off screen that his father has died. And, Cuba Gooding Jr. plays it well.
Yeah, it is. There are sometimes where people act in movies and TV shows, and there is, I like how that's the statement I make. Sometimes people act in things when they're actors. But I have always thought, as somewhat of an actor, that I feel like the hardest thing to do is to try to gauge how you would react to something that emotional that you haven't gone through.
Yeah.
And the fact that his dad dies and he is instantly hit with like all of it.
Yeah.
And he portrays it very well. It's a very good moment. It's,
yeah.
I think it's very hard to do well, and he does.
Cuba Gooding Jr., good actor.
Yep.
This was only a couple years after he won his Oscar for Jerry Maguire.
Yep.
So at this point now, Carl's kind of going through, his grief and everything else. He's gone off into the town on his weekend furlough, and he's just staring out to the sea from a dock. He goes and calls Joe and is like, "Hey, I need to see you." And then this is where Charlize Theron shows up for the first time in the movie.
She looks very nice too. She looks very good in this movie.
She comes driving up pretty much drunk.
Yeah, she's also like drunk for most of the movie. Yeah.
So she comes driving up in a car, comes up near Carl, kind of recognizes Carl, presumably from Sunday, like...
He's also wearing his Navy uniform and he's black.
Yeah.
It is no question of who he is.
So then she's like... She's got problems with Billy Sunday, so she's gonna... She's got problems with Billy Sunday, so she's like, to Carl, she's like, you want to, give him a hard time or something like that? Let's go into the bar and let's get a drink.
She does also mention here that they're married.
Yeah. This is where you find out that she's married to Billy. Yeah. So she's like, this is going to make him angry if you come in and have a drink with me. And they go in, they go to the bar, and it creates a thing. This is where you see Rourke sitting by himself, just kind of staring at the medal he's just received. Like, I don't deserve this, but
I'm gonna keep it.
I'm gonna keep it. And then Sunday comes up to his wife and Carl and is like,
he pretty much immediately makes a scene.
Yeah,
he's typical Billy Sunday. Yeah. She's being drunk and blah blah blah. And Carl kind of steps it to him.
Yeah, Carl's, again, in the throes of the grief of having just learned his father died, so he's feeling extra, I don't want to say combative, necessarily.
I think that's a good term, though.
So
in this case, I think so.
So he's ready to just kind of be done with Billy Sunday's stuff, and he's just gonna...
Not like attacking him, though.
Yeah.
That is a good thing to point out. He's not just like... coming in with a baseball bat being like, let's go, old man.
He's just standing up to him, and then they end up having this competition where they can see...
Strange competition.
They are going to see who can hold their breath the longest, because Billy Sunday tells the story about how during World War II...
Oh, yeah.
He
swimming through the ship.
He was on a sinking ship, and they had to flood the ship in order to be able to get out. And he bet General MacArthur that he could get out in
could hold his breath for some ridiculous amount of time
for like
to
4 or
swim
5
through.
minutes and to swim through and get out. And if he won, he would get the cob pipe.
Yep.
And that's where he got the cob pipe from.
Yep.
It's the origin story for the pipe. So,
which, you know what, we didn't need, but I appreciate.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Yeah. So then it devolves into this competition where
this is so ridiculous.
They have 2 of the diving helmets just suspended on strings in this bar.
Basically with a cape around the bottom of it.
Yeah, the cape is around the bottom. You stick your head in and they can be flooded with water. So
well, when you said you do stick your head in, but they literally, if you've ever seen when they have for operas where the big dresses are like lowered from the rafters on top of the person, it is like that. These guys have, it looks like an engine hoist with like the chains to like lower them down.
Yeah. And so Rourke is kind of there amongst with all the other people, kind of helping Billy Sunday get into the mask and sort of cheering him on. Carl has Snowhill, who's just sitting there.
Yeah, I don't know why Snowhill is still here.
Yeah,
they don't really explain that because it's been a while since he was kicked out.
Yeah, so is Snowhill just still kind of hanging around Bayonne, New Jersey? Is he just still stationed there, but he's just not in the diving school?
I don't know.
Is he waiting assignment? He is kind of hitting on a girl, but he's married, so he's like, my wife said it was okay if I danced with a pretty lady.
Yeah.
So, like,
one thing about him though in this though is the wager that they make is that if Carl wins, Snowhill gets to come back to diving school.
Yeah.
And then if Billy Sunday wins, Carl's out.
Yeah. So they get in the competition. The helmets fill with water, and they're going for a good 2-3 minutes. Rourke's got a little stopwatch on it that he's calling out every minute that they're in.
I would love to know how they did this. Because it looks like, we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Because you've got the little glass-looking panel in the front of the helmet, and then you've got some on the sides as well.
Yeah.
Because at one point, Robert De Niro turns, and you can see it filled up. So it would be really easy to have, like, the fake cover in the front and fill that with water.
Yeah.
It'd be really... But at one point, he breathes out through his nose, and you see the air bubbles. So I'm like, did they actually fill this thing with water? Yeah, well, one thing when I said the air comes out of his nose, he also starts bleeding from his nose. He being Billy Sunday. Yeah,
so the damage to his lungs is that severe that he starts bleeding out of his nose and his mouth and such.
Yeah, and he's not diving. This is
he's just holding his breath underwater. So Rourke starts to panic a little bit, opens up the thing, lets it out. So Carl wins the thing, but wins the competition by default.
But also while they're going, his wife, Charlize Theron, she's like, I can't do this. She leaves.
Out. And at the same time, Joe has showed up, and she sees the competition going on.
It's like a lot of shit goes wrong very quickly.
Yeah, she's kind of I don't want to say disgusted by it, but she's not happy about it because she's seeing Carl fooling around and just kind of doing the things she asked him not to do when she agreed to start working with him and stuff. So then she starts to run off.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of things happen at once.
Yeah.
Because she goes to leave. Carl is going to go after her. You hear a car crash sound. Everyone kind of runs outside. You see that Charlize has wrecked the car.
Yeah,
she did not make it very far.
Yeah,
she basically wrecked in the parking lot.
Well, there's a line where it says she tried to drive off the pier or something like that. So I guess the idea is she was trying to drive the car into the ocean.
Yeah,
it's basically just a way to get Billy's attention.
Well, she does.
I don't know.
Because he comes out and he's like hugging at her and she's mad at him and.
Yeah.
I don't know. Their relationship is strange.
Yeah,
it's very clear that they care about each other, but they are also both so personally fucked up.
Yeah.
That it's. But yeah, this is the thing with Joe that kind of annoys me.
Yeah.
Is she lays into Carl like, you were looking for the first chance you got to go toe to toe with him.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. She gets in a taxi. She goes to leave, and I'm like, you know what, girl? Good for you. You know what? You stood your ground. He starts yelling, "Marry me, Joe, marry me." She gets the taxi driver to stop. She gets out, runs up to him, and says yes.
Well, no, the taxi driver.
No, I know he says it, but she still stops, runs back to him, and says yes.
Yeah, because she can't hear Carl yelling, "Marry me, marry me."
She shouldn't have.
She just
that taxi driver fucked her over.
The taxi driver looks in the rearview mirror, sees him running after a little bit, and is like, "I think he wants to marry you."
He should have kept going.
And so she stops the taxi, runs in, all that good stuff. They're together again. Everything's forgiven.
Yay.
5 seconds later. It's rushed for the purpose of getting the beat in the movie and then just keep going on.
Yeah. We are at this point for the training wise pretty much up to the big finale. There is a meeting between Billy Sunday and
Mr. Patty,
and this is where Mr. Patty is cleaning all of his stuff meticulously. He is telling Billy Sunday, whatever you do, don't let him pass. And Sunday says like he doesn't even have to have a fast time for the completion tomorrow. All he's got to do is finish it, and he's gonna pass.
Yeah.
So then Patty's like, well, you better make sure that he doesn't finish then. So the next day they have their basically final exam for this. They have to go down in diving suits.
The radio thing.
Fuck yes, the radio. So then the night before, Billy Sunday comes into the barracks and pretty much just confronts Carl and is like, Patty's not going to let you pass.
Yeah.
So they have some back and forth and blah, 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 and things get heated as they do every time Billy Sunday is involved in this movie.
Yeah, Carl basically calls him out and is like, at least I know who I am. Without diving, you're nothing. You don't know who you are.
Yep.
So then...
Dude, freaking Billy Sunday grabs that radio that was given to him by his now deceased father.
Yep.
And he just fucking yeets that thing on the ground. It shatters into a bajillion pieces.
Yeah.
And this is another really good acting moment for Cuba Gooding Jr. because he is shocked and you can tell he is furious, but he is like actively holding himself back from doing something.
Yeah.
There are so many moments where like I could see it would have been really easy writing to have him just slug someone.
Yeah.
And he never does in this movie.
Yeah. So then Sunday then notices the picture of Carl's father sitting on the little bedside table or whatever that's there too, where the radio.
It is also
was.
Not a particularly flattering photo. Like he is scowling in the photo.
So Billy goes to pick it up,
and he sees the letters carved.
Yeah, he picks up the thing, and Cuba is like, "Hey, don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't mess with it." He sees the letters on the pieces, the ASNF, and he recognizes it.
Yeah, he doesn't say something, but he has a look.
It's just a look on Robert De Niro's face where he recognizes that moment, that those letters, and he says, "What did your father say to you to make you try so hard?" And Cuba Gooding Jr. says, "Be the best." Well, you are.
Yeah, Billy Sunday says you are.
And it's not going to do any good for you.
And he leaves.
Yep.
And so then the next day we get their big final exam. So what happens is the people that are doing the exam, they are in full-blown diving suits. Billy Sunday does say that we will give you oxygen as long as you're down there, as long as you need. We will. Yeah. But if you're down there long enough, especially with the temperature or with the depth and with the fact it's going to get
cold
nighttime, it's going to get cold. So what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to go down. They've got their light. They're in their diving suit. They are supposed to find their pieces for. It's a flange that they have to put together, and then they call up and they request their tool bag. It gets dropped down. They have to assemble all of it underwater.
Yeah.
So people start finding stuff. They get their calls. Carl finds makes his call, and then before the tool bag is sent down, Billy goes over to it, pulls out a knife, cuts the bottom of it open. So instead of getting a bag, everything is just dumped in the water.
Yeah.
And when I say everything, it is nuts and bolts and washers and wrenches. I mean, it is
Yeah,
a ton of stuff.
All these little pieces of and tools and screws and everything else just scattered on like this river or lake bed or whatever.
Yeah.
And he has to find each and every little one.
Yeah.
So.
And yet, to be fair, when I said he has a light, keep in mind the year that this took place. Yeah. It is not a good light. No. It is a really bad light, and it's on the bottom of the water, and they're fairly deep at this point.
Yeah.
So we do then get some scenes where like some of the people are complete. I think Rourke is actually the first one that gets it completed.
Yeah.
And their completion time, it's a couple hours for like everyone.
Yeah.
And we see Carl just keeps going and keeps going. Time is going on. Time is going on. It gets to a point where he's down there. He's been down there for so long that some people think he's dead.
Yeah, it's like 7 or 8 hours.
I think it's 10.
Yeah,
I think it's like he completes it at 10. I think
it's like nighttime, and he asks Rourke when Rourke finishes, and it's still daytime when Rourke's in there.
Yeah.
In there, and he's like, "How cold is it down there?" It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
So then, as the temperature drops, it's nighttime. Carl's down there in very cold water. And
yeah.
He's down there for 8 hours, 10 hours.
And but also around this time, like literally everyone that's completed it, they've like gone, they've changed, they've eaten, they all come back.
Yeah.
So it looks like the entire diving school is there. Mr. Patty is looking up from his little outpost, and I think they're about to call it. Like Billy's about to be like, "We're going to be pulling up a corpse here
he's
at no time."
To start pulling him up, and then all of a sudden the line.
Yeah. So there's a rope that the flange is supposed to be tied to, and all of a sudden they see it get pulled, and they pull it up, and it is perfect completion. And then he slowly starts coming up, and sometimes when you get cold, like your teeth chatter, or you get a little. He has full body shivers.
Yeah,
I will say, been there, done that. It sucks. And I mean, when they take the thing off, dude, he is frozen. He is a human popsicle.
Yeah.
And Mr. Patty is yelling at Billy to like fail him. Don't blah blah blah. And Billy straight up gives the completion time. Says that it's perfect completion, blah blah blah. So that's it. He passes.
Yeah.
So Carl is going to graduate diving school.
Yeah. Find out the next day that Sunday's been reassigned.
Yep.
To another area.
Did he also get demoted or just reassigned?
I can't remember if he gets demoted at this point. I think it's just reassigned.
I think it's just reassigned because every other time he gets demoted, we get to see it in the little courtroom looking thing.
Yeah, this one's just a reassignment because Mr. Pappy's not happy with the fact that he let Carl finish the test and graduate. Carl, as he's packing up for diving school, actually finds the radio repaired on his bed, and it's heavily implied that Sunday was the one who fixed it. And actually now it has something else etched into the side where the ASNF was.
Yep.
And it says, "A son never forgets."
Yep.
So just further credence of like, now we know what ASNF means, and further credence to the fact that Billy and Carl have a lot of shared sort of upbringing.
Yeah.
And shared experience.
There was actually a line as well. I forgot to mention it when they're like arguing the night before. Is Robert De Niro's character says something about we were on the land until your family could come along and farm it cheaper than mine.
Yeah.
So it is so crazy that he says that, but then literally when Carl was growing up, his family was always scared they were going to lose it because they couldn't farm it as well.
It's just
never-ending cycle, man.
It's a never-ending cycle, and just sort of showing the perspectives that these two individuals have, but they don't necessarily know each other's true story.
Yeah.
So now we go to the New Year's Eve parties, right?
That's what I was bringing this up for, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's next.
So we get another little time jump here, and we end up at a New Year's Eve party first with Carl and Joe, and Carl tells tells her that he got an assignment.
Yep.
To Brooklyn Naval Yard, and she's happy about it, but he's not, because he wants to make the rank of Master Chief.
Yep.
And the only way you make the rank of Master Chief is to be a diver.
Mm-hmm.
This, he wouldn't be necessarily active out on ships or anything else like that, so he wouldn't rise through the ranks quite as much. And it's at the same party here that she tells him that she's pregnant.
Yep.
Then we go to another much more swanky New Year's Eve party, hosted by the Navy itself, and we get more Billy Sunday.
Yep. Being a bit drunk, a bit angry at everything. He is there with his wife. Hanks is there from earlier. Hanks shoots his mouth off a few too many times, and Billy Sunday just beats the hell out of him.
He even makes a comment about the age difference between.
I think he calls her the daughter.
Your daughter, or something like that, and it's like, I must compliment you on how beautiful your daughter is, or something like that. And she calls him back out by saying, "Come on, Billy, you want to dance with your wife, right?"
Yeah.
But then, after the shots that ensue,
I will say it's a really sad moment when they're dancing, and they're having a nice moment, and then he leaves, and she knows what he's about to do, and just the sadness on her face kind of gets me.
Yeah, she kind of is just like Billy, pleadingly, like, don't do what you're about to do, and he goes up and just slugs Hanks.
And then I know this comes as a great shock to you, but we get another scene of him being demoted.
Because you can't punch a superior officer, man.
God, you know what? He didn't learn that lesson in diving school. He was too busy diving. So at this point, we are officially catching back up to where we started the movie, with Billy watching on the TV as Carl... So the news report that he has seen is that Carl has recovered missing nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you just drop those in the ocean.
Yeah, so... This is when we get 1966. Carl has had a long career as a diver. He was actually supposed to be home at this point, but they called him out on this emergency diving operation because the Russians had lost a nuclear bomb at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. And because of maritime law, the first person who finds it keeps it.
Yep, so. Maritime law, otherwise known as finders keepers. I mean, it's pretty close.
Yeah. So this is probably the most action-y sequence of this movie, because Carl goes down into the sea to look for this weapon, and he can't find anything. And then a Russian submarine shows up.
Dude, it is very funny because it's very action-y, but because he's underwater and he's running in this suit, it's so slow.
Yeah.
But so the reason he's nervous about the submarine is because he's got that airline. Yeah. And it is, again, it's a thick thing. Yeah. So the submarine is passing like right above him, and it's got those big fins that go out of the side. So he is slow-mo running, trying to
avoid it.
He doesn't get it, and boy, it yanks him off the floor of the ocean. Yeah. But because the fins are angled a bit, he kind of manages to slide off.
Yeah, it just slides off. He starts to kind of float towards the propeller on the back of the submarine.
Yeah.
And like it kind of dodges out at the last minute, and he's able to. And it turns out that the submarine kicked up the floor of
the ocean floor, and now he found nuclear device.
So he's back up on the ship now. They're hoisting up the device, and
dude, this part's pretty gross. I'm not gonna lie. I watch a lot of horror movies, but for some reason, this one's
rough to watch.
It's gross. So they're bringing up the atomic device. Freaking people in their winches in this, they just can't get working ones apparently.
Yeah.
So it breaks, something breaks, and he sees it happen a second before it's going to happen, and he goes and as it breaks, he pushes someone out of the way, but when he does, it looks almost like a small anchor. There's no way that's what it is.
And so the rope snaps, and it ends up, the momentum of the rope pulls one of these loops that the ropes run through off of its base, and it comes through and it just slashes Carl's leg off right about at the knee.
Well, what I think makes it gross, I don't think it's completely
it's
off.
Not all the way off.
For some reason, that makes it way worse to me. If it had just taken it off, I'd be like, okay. But yeah, he's laying there and his leg is like, you can tell where it has been severed because one of his legs looks unnaturally longer than the other, and it's off at a weird angle.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not super visceral in the sense you are not looking at like torn flesh across the, but it's just the way that it looks. It is gross.
Yeah, it's gross and unsettling.
Yeah.
But then he gets taken to the hospital. It's wrapped up in this big old
dude,
like cast or
they
something.
like try to save it, and his leg is so fucked up.
Yeah, I think Joe says like it nearly came off, and and it's gonna be months of recovery, and then maybe you'll be able to walk again with the use of a cane.
Yep, with a cane.
So like at this point, all he's hearing is his career is over, and he hasn't reached his goal of being a Master Chief diver yet.
Yep.
So then
he gets a mysterious thing in the mail.
Yeah, he gets a mysterious little I think it's like a Time magazine.
It's serious. I think it's his magazine.
And it talks about how there have been these runners who had amputations and got prosthetics and they started running again. So this gets Carl the idea of
do it to me.
Yeah, cut my leg off and I'll use a prosthesis, and that'll let me go to the dive again. And so this magazine, I wonder who could have possibly sent it.
Definitely Hanks.
Yeah, Hanks was just in the room telling him, hey, your career's over. But
also, here's a magazine you might enjoy. I put a sticky note in a page you might particularly enjoy.
No, it was our old friend Billy Sunday.
Yeah, the only thing really with the amputation as well is Joe is
very
angry at him. She's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't let him chop it off. And he's like, bitch, it's my leg. I'll let him chop it off.
Remember, she is a doctor, but she's also his wife, so she's got that extra bit of concern on top of it and everything else. And this is still the mid-60s, so I don't know what the medicine is behind amputations.
I assume not great.
I mean,
I don't assume it's that great today, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't speak to it.
Nope. There is a scene that is kind of pretty sad, honestly. After he does get his leg amputated, and where he's laying in bed after, and he's just like shivering.
Yeah, he's dealing with the after effects of the shock of having his leg amputated.
That's pretty rough.
And it's rough. And then he starts to get the prosthesis going. I think Joe kind of is just kind of out of the picture at this point now.
Yeah.
She's kind of just not anywhere around. She doesn't support this decision at all.
Yeah. Well, we can't have her in the movie. She might do something. Dude, she's a perfectly good character. She just doesn't get used much.
She doesn't have a lot of place in the story outside of being Carl's love interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do see him going through, physical
therapy.
Physical therapy. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, physical therapy, and it's starting off, just trying to stand up, just take a step. But he is pushing himself very quickly. He's trying to jump rope very early on. I will say there's something that they do that's fairly smart in this, is the prosthetic that they use for him in the movie.
Yeah.
It looks like a full leg.
Yeah.
So, of course, they can just basically put a customized looking pant leg on him and then be like, okay, just walk like this one's fake.
Yeah.
Which, fair.
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
And so throughout all of Carl's struggles to kind of get through this, all of a sudden, who should show up but Billy Sunday. And this is, we got a little shot earlier of Billy seeing the newspaper article about Carl having been injured on the boat earlier, and that's what motivated him sending the magazine.
Yeah.
This is where we really get the confirmation of Billy doing that, and he shows up because he's gonna he's like,
train him.
he hears about the inquiry that Carl has set up with the Naval Board to try to get recertified as a diver after he's trained, because he's given himself a 12-week period to be able to walk and support the diving apparatus.
Yep. And it's a certain number of steps, like 10 steps, I think.
And so Billy's showing up, first of all, to be like, okay, I'm going to stick it to Hanks real good by helping you do this thing.
Yeah.
But also because Billy's kind of come to...
Yeah, there's an important scene where after Billy gets arrested, he's in what I do believe is rehab.
Yeah.
Definitely looks like it. And his wife comes to visit him and is straight up, finally, after 47 demotions, is like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like, we both need to... And I do like, she does say we both. She does not say, like, you are the problem.
Yeah.
She's like, we both need to work on this. We need to, try to be happy again. We need to work through it. So when he shows up at Carl's door, he is actively carrying himself differently than he does. It's like, this is the Master Chief in full glory with fucked up lungs. But this really is him the way like he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does start training him and pushing him, and then we get the culmination of the whole movie of him having to get recertified.
Yeah, we get that nice little moment where they're both getting dressed up in their dress uniforms for the hearing, and you get the swelling of the music. I really do like this score. It's not like...
Yeah, I was a little upset that you mentioned enjoying the music for this, and I just don't really... I didn't really remember noticing any of it.
I mean, it's fair. It stands out to me more, but I can understand why you might not necessarily notice it.
Yeah, but usually that's
my
thing.
Yeah.
For when you said it, I was like, oh my god, I don't know if I picked up on a single music cue in this entire movie.
And one of the, I guess it's another military police person standing guard outside of the hearing door, tells Billy he can't come in because Hanks has barred him from coming in.
Yeah. And he says okay.
Yeah, he's okay. He gives Carl one last little, like, you go get him. And then he just goes and sits on the bench out there.
Not for long, but yes.
And then Carl goes into the hearing, walks in and down through everything, sits down. Joe's there.
Yep.
So Joe's back
with their kids.
With the kids to support. And even Billy's wife is in the room to support him. And then so now there's a panel where it has a bunch of old heads of like the Navy, and then it's got Hanks in the middle. Hanks is running everything.
Yeah, it is very clear that he is in charge of this.
Yeah, and so they have a back and forth, but during the hearing where Hanks is asking Carl questions about, do you think you'll be able to effectively meet this point and that point and that point based on the regulations that are required for Navy divers?
Mm-hmm.
And Carl makes some witty comments back to him in response to the questions.
I do like the one where he's like, do you really think that the Navy is in need of or ready to have a diver of your age with one leg? And Carl's like, well, they weren't ready for a black diver, but here I am.
Yeah.
Damn, okay.
That's
a really good line.
I also remember, like, if something should happen while you're under water,
if your leg breaks.
If your leg breaks, or if something happens and you go topsy-turvy under the water because the balance of the weight is off because of the prosthetic. And Carl's like, well, I swear I'll make every effort to die like a Navy man if I do. And that really plays to the old heads on the...
Yeah.
Like, Carl is going old school Navy on this one, and Hanks is very much new school, to the point that Hanks is like, okay, well, the regulations say that you need to wear this new suit.
Yeah, new suit, and instead of 10 steps, it's 12.
Yeah.
And Carl's like, what new regulation? And Hank's like, the one that I just wrote.
Yeah.
You dick.
At this point, Sunday's come and barged into the hearing.
Well, that's when they wheel it in, isn't it?
Yeah, so he sees the
suit coming down the hallway.
He sees the suit being pushed down the hallway, and is like, what is this newfangled contraption? And then he barges in, And then,
I think he says something to the guard about like, son, if you want to keep all your teeth in your head, you better get out of my way.
yeah, and then it's actually Sunday who says to Hanks, who wrote the book, the new books and regulations, and Hanks is like, I did. So at this point, we're very clearly being shown that Hanks is kind of arrogant about this whole thing, and it's not playing well to the rest of the old heads on the.
Yeah, there is the moment where Hanks wants to have Sunday removed.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's just one of the older guys on the thing is like, who is this man? And then you fucking find out it's MacArthur. Because Sunday makes the comment about, I've still got your pipe. And the guy, he says something like, oh, you held your breath for like 4 minutes or something. And Sunday's like, 5. And MacArthur laughs and is like, he can stay.
Yeah, so again, playing to that new school versus old school.
Yep. And then, they say that you have to take so many steps in this outfit, and we'll set up a date and time for it. And Carl's like, nope, do it now. And Billy is the one that's like immediately trying to shoot it down. Because, he's like, dude, the floor here is not conducive to this. And Carl's like, I don't give a shit. Do it now.
Yeah, so to Billy's credit, he's like, okay, you want to do it this way? We'll do it this way. And so and the thing is, this thing is made out of bronze, so it's heavier than anything
290 pounds.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So, it's heavier than anything's been before. He's having to carry it on a prosthetic leg.
It's more steps than he thought he was going to have to take.
So, it's very clearly set up to make Carl fail.
Yep.
And so, Carl gets dressed up in the suit.
And he's sitting down, which is a very important thing.
Yeah, they have to be able to stand up from a sitting position as another one of the regulations.
I don't think it is. He did not mention standing until Billy says something about they're allowed to be doing it, and then all of a sudden it's a regulation.
Yeah, so what it is Carl gets dressed, he's sitting down on the bench and has been prepared. Billy tells the two helpers that helped him get dressed to help him up, and that's when Hank says, oh no, a diver has to be able to stand up on his own. And so Carl stands up on his own. But
Billy does also immediately be like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not the way it has ever been before.
Yeah, now it is.
Yeah.
And so now Carl stands up. He manages to stand up, but he's already dripping.
Drenched in sweat.
Like, it's insane. Just the amount of effort. Like, really good stuff by Cuba Gooding Jr. to, like, sell how tough this is right now.
You know they just have, like, sweat injectors on the inside of...
And then he starts to take the steps, and so he struggles through one or two.
Yeah, it's very dramatic. It's drawn out, you know, sometimes because it's very clear that he's got a strong leg and a not strong leg.
Yeah.
And the whole time that Billy Sunday is yelling at him. Supportive stuff.
Yeah, there's a very specific sort of call
step to the line,
and then he gives a big sort of, it's not really a soliloquy, but it's just one big,
pretty close.
So it's something that he'd done at the diving school years before about why, and it ends with, I don't know why anyone would want to be a Navy diver. If you're lucky, you'll die 10 feet below the surf and stuff like that. Watch the scene on YouTube or something.
Dude, it's so
Watch
good.
the movie. It's a very good scene, and he's doing this because it's motivation to Carl to keep him taking steps, because Carl's about ready to give up because after 4 or 5 steps, because this thing.
Dude, I can't imagine. Like, I've had some pretty heavy stuff on like shoulders before.
Yeah. But
head? Yeah. I mean, it is still a lot of it spread out to your shoulders, but fuck, dude, that's a person. That's a good sized person.
Yeah. And so finally they get to step 11. Billy calls out to him and says, "Now bring me my suit or whatever." Yeah. Like the final call to like get him over the final step. He takes the final step and he immediately starts to collapse. Like and Carl starts to collapse. It's done. And Billy's just like, yeah.
And then Hank says that
Hank,
he's certified. There's nothing else he can do at that point.
Hanks is so...
Add another 100 pounds of suit.
Hanks is so disappointed in this right now.
I gotta give it to him, though. He does, at that point,
Yeah.
The only positive thing I'll say about his entire character is at that point he does say Carl Brashear is recertified.
Yeah, the U.S. Navy proudly recertifies Carl Brashear to active diving duty.
Yeah.
So
Billy just walks out.
Yeah, Billy.
Just,
he meets up with his wife at the door. He gives a quick glance back to sort of be like, "Hey, Carl," nods in acknowledgement, and then just leaves. And that's basically the end of the movie.
Yeah, it does have a little thing at the end that Carl continues, I think, like another 9 years.
Yeah.
In the Navy as a diver, and then...
And he makes Master Chief.
Yep.
And he retires after those 9 years. Can't really say what Billy Sunday did because Billy Sunday wasn't...
I like to think that he rode off into the sunset to get demoted another day. Maybe he joins the Marines so he can get really high ranking in the Marines to just get demoted there as well.
Maybe.
But dude, this just... I love this movie so much.
It's a very good movie. It's almost feel good in some ways.
Yeah.
Like, despite the heavy, like, subject matter that's involved, and I know we've kind of tried to skirt around that as much as possible.
Well, it is also a little weird sometimes for us to talk about stuff that, you know, we don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
We're both very white.
Yes.
This movie also reminds me a lot of The Guardian.
Yes.
Which is a significantly newer movie. It's not... It doesn't deal with a lot of the same issues, but it is a very similar type of movie.
Yeah.
I also enjoy that one as well.
Yeah, that's Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher in the National Guard.
And Neil McDonough.
Yeah.
Love him in
I
that.
need to watch that movie sometime soon.
It's very good.
Fun. It's very good. Fun's not the right word. It's a good movie.
It's a very...
Yeah.
Oh, Clancy Brown's in that one, too.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's a good-ass movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one in a hot minute.
Good cast.
Yeah.
They both deal in sort of the same thing of you have this older guard who's training this newer guard within the branch that they're at. You're not dealing with the
racial stuff,
the racial issues and stuff like that so much as you are just generational issues in The Guardian. But they do have a very similar feel. They exist in sort of the same area of my mind in terms of just these sort of military-esque movies.
Yeah, and then in Men of Honor, they're salvage divers, and then in The Guardian, they're rescue swimmers.
Yeah. So I get where you're coming from with that, and yes, The Guardian's very good. We might have to cover that one eventually here on the show.
Now that we've talked about it, I'm like, oh, I gotta go watch that again.
I'm gonna have to go hunt it down and watch it.
Funny thing about Men of Honor, the year that this came out, this is one of the first movies I remember owning on DVD. Like, this is one of the first ones that I remember when we started going over from VHS to DVDs in my household.
That's fair. I could not tell you what those movies are.
I don't know why. When movies first started coming out on DVD, a very popular thing, we usually think of the plastic ones that open up.
Yeah.
They were the ones that had still the cardboard type thing that had the plastic thing that would cover the side that you'd pop it.
Yeah.
And then we had that version of this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It was... I literally remember this. I remember Revenge of the Sith, and maybe it's just those two that I just remember as like some of our first DVDs that we had.
I don't know. Yeah, this movie I've seen it on and off over the years, so it's always stuck with me. I really do enjoy this movie. It's not obviously on my top 10 like it is yours.
Yeah.
But it is one of those where if I see it on, it's one that I'll usually put on just to, have a good movie sitting in front of me and just to watch and pass a couple of hours.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy it. There are some moments where the writing comes across as a little too saccharine to me, and there are some moments where, as much as I love Robert De Niro, like his southern accent and sort of his eccentricities feel a little too much, but it's not so much.
You mean too perfect, right? That's
no, if you want the perfect Robert De Niro performance, you go to Stardust.
I'm shocked you said. I thought you were gonna hate that movie.
No, I really liked that movie.
Thoroughly enjoy that one. Yeah, I will say I originally watched this because of Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the cover that we had, I don't the DVD cover we had. I don't even think Cuba Gooding Jr. was on the cover. I think it was just Robert De Niro.
I've only seen a couple of different variations. There's the one where it has like Robert De Niro's face and then Cuba Gooding Jr.'s face behind him or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's one where it's, I think, both of them like full body together.
Yeah.
On the cover, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say one of them would be more top billing than the other, especially around this time. Like Cuba Gooding Jr. was riding high. He had, like I said earlier, just won his Oscar for Jerry Maguire a few years beforehand, and then he's sort of in this run of movies that he's got going in the middle of this.
Meanwhile, Robert De Niro is
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro.
So, now if they had put Michael Rappaport, who played Snow Hill, on the cover, that might have been a little weird.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I enjoy this movie a lot.
I really enjoy it. It's one of those movies that it gets into some kind of heavier stuff, but not to the point that it's like I don't ever feel uncomfortable watching this movie.
Yeah.
Some stuff does it, I think, fairly so. But this one, you get some kind of heady stuff. You get feel-good stuff. You get funny. You get very uplifting, particularly towards the end.
Yeah.
This really is a bit of everything.
Yeah.
I do. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. Obviously, it's on my top 10.
Yeah.
This is one of those ones that I had to think about for a while, and I just kept thinking about what movies do I constantly find myself going back and rewatching, even if it hasn't been that long since I watched it previously. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this one. But yeah, that has been Men of Honor. And for now, I'm Bradley.
And I'm Brendan.
And this has been Story Proof.